Stinga Butts. I like to yap and you are legally required to listen. And today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships, but not those big scary parasocial relationships, more of the niche kind. Now, I know a lot of you originally followed me for my dropout content, and more dropout content is on the way. But for now, you get a little dropout as a treat for this video. I never expected those videos to do super well. I never expected my entire brand to be dropout. I know a lot of you may expect that sort of content. Is there a bug in here? And yes, there is something else on the way. I just moved into college though, so it may be a little bit because it's a super big undertaking. Regardless, today we're here to talk about parasocial relationships. So I don't know about you, but I think about parasocial relationships all the time. And I'm really incredibly paranoid about not falling too deep into them. But even despite my knowledge of it, I still find myself doing so. If you don't know what a parasocial relationship is, geez, take a shot every single time I say parasocial relationship. Oh my God. A parasocial relationship is one that is entirely one-sided. Oftentimes, one person has no idea that the other even exists, or have maybe met them 1 to 2 times, while the other person in the group may know every single detail about the other person's life, or think they do. Obviously, I do think that social media has played an incredibly important factor in increasing these types of relationships and how common they are. But parasocial relationships have always existed. Maybe not to the same extent that we're seeing them today, but even with celebrities, we have a bunch of information about their personal life while they have no idea who we are. Parasocial relationships could even exist in real life. If you see a person and listen to their conversations, kind of like stalker-esque, but they actually have no idea who you are, that can technically be considered a parasocial relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that is so crazy like the things that we're seeing. Of course, I'm going to be talking about the internet version. That's why I'm here. When I first started making this video, I wanted to talk about Ballerina Farm and some other things like that that are rapidly coming out of the mainstream the longer I wait to make this video. But I wanted to talk about Ballerina Farm because I think it's such an example of parasocial relationship in a way that we don't typically think of it as. Now, if you want to know the full story of Ballerina Farm, there are plenty of people who have also made videos about that. I'm not going to go in depth on this story because it's been overdone and honestly, I don't really want to talk about it. Ballerina Farm is a TikTok account run by Hannah and Daniel, who are a couple, and it's called Ballerina Farm because Hannah used to go to Juilliard and was a trained dancer until she gave it up to be on the farm with Daniel and their horde of children. They also are Mormon. They maybe were talked about before. I had never heard about them before this huge thing that started happening on TikTok, but they're one of those like Mormon influencers that do have a large-ish following even before this article. I heard about them with talk about an article from The Times, which is a article about Hannah and Daniel where they did go on the farm and interview them and heavily implied that maybe that situation wasn't as good as we have been seeing, that maybe was some toxicity going on and it might not have been as healthy. Now, when I first read that article, my first thought was, wow, this is incredibly sad, but this article is also incredibly biased. I think when a lot of us read that article, we related it to things in our own lives because we've all known somebody in a not great situation or been that somebody or have known of somebody in that situation. And we instantly went and projected that onto Hannah. But the thing also is that Hannah's TikTok account isn't going to show us the bad parts either. We're seeing 2 heavily biased sides. And with the article, it's clear that that author of that article went in intending to write that story. They would have used whatever they had to write that story. Or some of it seems incredibly fabricated, especially with the quotes that are in there. Editing me here to say that I mean this in the sense that there isn't a lot of quotes. The less quotes you have, the easier it is to tell the story you want, but also at the same time, you don't want to put just quotes. You need a good balance of it, and I think this author just has a complete lack of quotes or a lack of context in which some of these quotes were said, which makes them easy to be malleable to this story. I'm, again, not saying that this author is lying. Maybe what they did see is what's depicted in the article, but we don't have enough information to draw that conclusion ourselves. I think this is important to this type of conversation because we really don't know what's going on with anybody. Even if we have good intentions with this sort of parasocial relationship, Hannah may not need help getting out of that situation. She may enjoy it there. We have no idea. Are there some things that are absolutely concerning? And I think this is a really important conversation to have. Yes. However, we don't know. That's going to be the main part of this video, is we don't know these people. We do not know these people, no matter how many things that we can project onto them, no matter how many things that we think we are seeing through their videos, we don't know. As somebody who does post a lot on social media and all of that stuff, it's heavily curated what I do post. I'm not going to post me sobbing on the floor. Well, I do that sometimes, but not mainly. That's not the main content that I post. It's curated, and that's how it is with everybody. You're never going to know fully what's going on inside someone's brain. We don't even know that much about Chris Chan. Sorry for that mention. I should have put a trigger warning or something there about that. I also think parasocial relationships play into effect when people's pasts get brought up, like what's happening with Brooke Schofield right now. When she made her Clinton Kane series, and again, I'm not going to explain most of this, you can absolutely find it elsewhere, but when she made her Clinton Kane series exposing her ex, the internet rallied along with her, and we thought we knew who she was. And then these past tweets have been brought up, and now people are grappling with the fact that maybe they didn't truly know this person. Maybe they were supporting someone who was a bigot all along. And that's not a fun thing to deal with. As somebody who has bought plenty of YouTube merch from problematic YouTubers who I no longer support, it's difficult to grapple with your perception of that person in your mind to what you are now seeing. But it's such a common thing with social media nowadays because, yeah, why would somebody promote something that would get them canceled unless they are purposely going for that? Because, of course, there is content creators who are purposely trying to get canceled to get more views. But for people who aren't going for that sort of vibe, when those things are found out, it's typically a shock. And that in itself is a sort of parasocial relationship because we do have these preconceived notions about these people.
Okay, I want to add a little bit more to this because on top of these parasocial relationships that make us feel shocked by when actions like what's happening with Brooke Schofield comes up, it's also that it makes it easier to forgive them even when they don't deserve forgiveness. It's especially easy for these people who have the parasocial relationships, who are not a part of the group that is affected by the person's action. It's a lot easier to accept that Brooke Schofield has changed than to think that you've been supporting somebody who is a terrible person this whole time. I think it's incredibly important to be conscious of this. You can't just automatically assume things, and that's the danger of falling into these parasocial relationships. You have to be cognizant of it.
Moving on from that, I want to talk about dropout. I did tell you that there would be a little bit of dropout in this video. I've noticed that in the dropout community, we have these sort of parasocial relationships that I don't think are too inherently harmful. I don't think they're that harmful to have, but I do think it's interesting in how the community treats them. When we look at other streaming services, they have a vast array of different people and different shows, but with Dropout, it's relatively the same cast with maybe a few guest stars here and there. Granted, it's a big cast. At the end of the day, it's the same people over and over again. And I don't have a problem with that. I love those people. But that's where the problem lies. Because also, at the same time, these people aren't often playing another character. A lot of Dropout's content is improv-based, or just having the cast play themselves. Now, in improv, you're not just going to be yourself, you're going to be an amplified version of yourself if you are doing that. And I think that's what we specifically see with Brennan, and even he has admitted that, yeah, he doesn't go on those rants because he's actually feeling that way. Sometimes it's just an amplified version of what he's feeling because that's what makes for good television. I think that's what we forget a lot with the Dropout cast is they know what makes for good content. So they aren't just going to be their normal selves. They're going to be an amplified version of themselves. I think it's an issue when it starts to impact the cast and when we think that we know them. For example, I love all of you who commented on my previous post saying so-and-so would love this, but I don't know if they would. You know, like, I'm thinking about, like, if I was in a show and somebody did 2 hours of analysis on it, I'd probably be like, that's a bit crazy.
And even in my Game Changer videos, I was incredibly exaggerated with a lot of the things I was saying and my emotions that I was feeling because it's funnier.
And, you know, there's nothing against any of you who did comment that because it did make me feel good to think that you guys would think that they would like it. But at the end of the day, I don't really want them to watch that. You know, like I need to maintain my cool and mysterious vibe around them. I've also noticed that when I see Dropout cast and other things, I feel this sort of possessiveness over them. Like I'm like, oh, that's a Dropout person. No, they just act on Dropout. They're not, especially like those people who appear for like one episode. I'm like, oh, they were on Dropout. They they were on a lot of other stuff too. And I think that's the main difference with people who guest star on Dropout and other shows. It's we have this big sense of community, and if you are in the Dropout community, you do have this support. And I think that is a great thing to have, but I do also think it's important that we address some of the things that we're doing because we don't know these people. That brings me kind of to an adjacent thing. Bob the Drag Queen was on The Bald and the Beautiful, which is Trixie Mattel and Katya's podcast, and was talking about how sometimes people would come up to him and say, don't you know me? I asked you one question that one time. Because to us, these people are everything. But to them, we're just ones of the however many people follow them. It's impossible to know and recognize that many people. And it's not saying that these people who expect a celebrity to recognize them are inherently being selfish. It's just that we think that because we know them so well, they know us so well, and we're not entitled to that. Trixie Mattel has also talked about something similar, where at certain events, people will be like, I know you didn't actually want to be here. And she's like, no, if I didn't want to be here, I wouldn't be here. And it's kind of that thing where we think we know these people, but we really don't at the end of the day. And it does give us that sense of entitlement, which I think we're seeing with, on a smaller scale, Renee Rapp, and on a bigger scale, Chappell Roan. So I'm a big fan of Renee Rapp. I've been a big fan of her for a long time. I was a fan of her before it was cool. And I think that phrase in itself gives such a sense of entitlement to people who have known an artist before. And obviously, I am never not gonna stop saying that I knew Renee Rapp and Chappell Roan before they were cool, because I did. And I think that's important. But the thing with knowing someone before they were cool, it makes you think that you deserve a sense of entitlement, even though somebody who just discovered Renee Rapp or Chappell Roan may love them just as much as I do. They may like it more than me. We have no way of knowing that sort of thing, but just because we were there longer gives us a sense of entitlement. It's happened to both Renee and Chappell, where fans will come up and expect a photo. I remember a while ago, a fan went up to Renee Rapp and asked for a photo, and Renee turned them down, and they went and posted a rant on TikTok about it. And pretty much everyone was in support of Renee Rapp, saying she's not being rude, she's just not open for pictures at the moment. To them, this is a job, and they don't owe us anything. They made the music that we enjoy. That's it. That's the exchange. They make music, we listen to it. They don't even have to make music. They can stop making music anytime they want. Moving on to Chappell Roan. I have a lot to say about Chappell. I love her dearly, and again, that's part of the parasocial relationship there that's going. The thing with Chappell is she's had such a rise to fame that I think a lot of the things about this parasocial relationship and things around it are incredibly amplified when it comes to her. For example, I want to talk about the time that she wore a nun costume on stage, and a bunch of people were incredibly upset about that. And some of the older fans were like, well, do you even know Chappell? No, they might not. You don't have to know every single thing about an artist to enjoy their music. I do think it's fair to say that criticizing Chappell on something that she's stood for since the beginning is a bit redundant. I think with Chappell, it falls into certain things where there's a lot of straight people who are turning her songs straight, but some of those songs are originally about a man. People are gonna take music in whatever way they can. I would prefer if you know at least a majority of their songs, but that's about it. You don't have to watch the music videos. A lot of the things that people were talking about are things that were said in music videos or TikToks that she has since deleted since blowing up, which I don't think is necessarily all her doing. I think it might be her team who had her delete a lot of her old TikToks. But in that sense, there really isn't the same way for newer fans to get to know Chappell the way older fans think that they do. When people are defending Chappell in these ways, Chappell, as far as I know, Chappell has not put out a statement about the nun costume. It's all the fans defending her for her, because I don't think she really cares at the end of the day. And I also think that Chappell is kind of done with fan discourse, and that can incredibly be seen when she posted a TikTok asking that people don't come up to her in public anymore. And a lot of people, and I think this is on both ends of both the older and the newer fans, saying, but you owe us a picture. Again, similar to the Renee Rapp situation. They don't owe us anything. Is what I'm talking about really what we think about when we think of parasocial relationships? No, but I think we have a little bit of a parasocial relationship with everybody. With that being said, I am Juliana Yaps. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was an incredibly quick thing, so sorry if anything was worded weird. My camera cut off. But please like and subscribe if you like this video and want more content. Again, I have a big project coming your way, so make sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when it comes out.